Hi, Stelio, and welcome to Skills for Mars. I'm really, really happy to be hosting you finally.
Hi there. Yes, it's my pleasure being here with you.
Stelio, just to let everyone know who you are, would you be okay to introduce yourself, give a bit of your background and what you're doing right now, what you're working to?
Wow, how much time do you have? Because I'm trying to figure that out myself.
Maybe we can figure it out together.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, okay, I'm known by those that know me for my work in the organizational field. So what I do is basically helping organizations in their evolution. That is normally navigating more change-driven phases, but also just the normal phases in which you are relaxed enough to go deeper in how you work, to go deeper in what you want and how you can be out in the world as an organization. So I've been doing this since I was 19 or 20, which is now almost 25 years, actually. 25 years. Wow. And I started doing this as I was studying at university. I studied fluid dynamics because of my passion for the waves, for the wind, for non-linear reality in the world. And fun enough, I then ended up designing a model for adaptive governance that is called liquid organization. But as I was studying, actually it was 95 or 96 when, at least in Italy, for the first time, internet was perceived as a strategic asset, something that you actually need to learn how to use for your business. And we were the nerdy kids playing with that. And so I was one of those that was called by companies to not much on the technical hacking side, but more on the strategic and being being a tool, being something they can use in their strategy, even in their operations. And so this is how I started consulting. And when I don't remember if it was 19 or 20, but more or less there. And I liked it actually. It was part of my interest in how things evolve and how things change. It's always been there since I was probably 13. I think I read Zen and the Art of Archery when I was 13. And from there, my curiosity never stopped. So basically, I started consulting. I started my first company around as an associate studio in the 2000. And then I think we incorporated it in 2005. And we did mainly strategic communication, brand design, and a lot of the 2.0 stuff that was emerging in that moment. It was the moment in which the power of information generation and also transformation shifted from companies to the market. So it was unprecedented in history, and we worked a lot with that in many different ways now, to cut it short. And then, that company crashed in the crisis of 2009, 2010, and it crashed for many reasons, but mainly for two, which both are called rigidity. One is the rigidity of our customers that had to freeze everything in that moment. We had even very important customers, big multinational companies. We were going quite well. We were very young. And on our side, we made the same error. As we started to grow, we started to organize in a way that we thought from the books and from the traditional org design discipline that was the correct one, but actually under stress it didn't work. So when that happened, a few of us stopped and we said, so how would a better way of working be? How could a really cool kind of organization be, even though we think it's not possible? So just what if thinking. And so from there started Cocoon, which is my current company. And while our parents were suggesting to go find a real job instead of, again, this entrepreneurial bullshit, we went on, and the first thing we did is to redesign the brain of the company. So we designed a different way of doing the governance. which still, I believe, is really where the neuroplasticity of the organization comes from. And that way is now known as LiquidO, which is a liquid organization, short term for liquid organization, but still it's a framework for adaptive governance. And it is now part of the adaptive or design discipline that I've been developing since then, since 2010, basically. It's 10 years now. I say I have, but actually I've been working with many beautiful people around the world. This is the best thing that happened for taking the bet. Meeting other people that actually in 2011 or 12 or 13, when nobody knew about no management or holacracy or teal or all these things that now you hear, there were groups of people working on that, and there were even big, beautiful cases. And I came in touch with all of that, and that was the beginning of a huge journey. And it complemented my skills and my curiosity in how you can really help the evolution of organization, which led me to what I do today and how I do it, which is really contemplating the uniqueness of each human system as an organization, as a socio-technical system, but with a unique identity, unique context, and unique trajectory. And so that means that you really need to read it, dance with it, and you need to have your competencies, but also a lot of respect and attention in what the system is expressing. And so I don't like the pre-designed manual-driven models for this reason. And what I do now in Cocoon, we have called the discipline of doing this evolution flow, which we say is the art, science, and craft, to use Mintzberg triangle, of answering one simple question, which is, what is the next natural evolutionary step that this system can make? The question is simple. Finding the answer, a good answer, there is no the answer. A good answer is not that simple, takes mastery, and this is what we dedicate our energies to.
I'm happy to hear you're not the only one doing this. Actually, I've met recently quite a few people that are looking either in enterprise design or design, especially with the changes brought by the pandemic, to really understand how they can better their organizations and make them more resilient, make them more flexible, make them more agile, whichever word we use right now, and not agility in the sense of Scrum necessarily, but just making them more flexible and adaptable, more liquid. By the way, you've been through two crises, and in one of them, you've lost your company.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the same kind of changes that are happening right now, or is there a difference from the 2007, 2008, 9 crisis?
That's a good question, and I've been asking it myself in these months. So the crisis itself is very different. As everything is different in life, you cannot do the same thing twice. This crisis is not coming from the economy, well, all the things that we all know. So it's different structurally. But I also think it is a very different moment. This crisis has, to my feeling, this crisis is uncovering like a boiling water of need for change that was there. And this is a big opportunity, actually, for all of us, even without having to wait for institutions and big structures to notice it, to rethink how we want to show up in the world as individuals, for sure, but also as organizations. I think the world was far from ready in 2010. Really, it was like slapping a face of somebody that had the eyes closed. I think that today is very different. This is arriving in a moment in which I don't know if ready is too big a word, but still the eyes are open. And the conversation about the need for restructuring the very foundation of our society has been there for a few years already. So it arrives after things like all the movements for climate change, all the connection of people working on bioregional areas, all the work about the evolution of organizations that has been there now for almost 10 years, and it's now mainstream. All these things are coming together, and this crisis stopped everything and show that it is possible to stop the old, and also forced people to have a lot of time for themselves, including myself. So I think this is the biggest difference. This is an opportunity. The other one, we just suffered it. This one, we have suffered it, we will suffer it more, but it is also opening up a space of huge opportunity for consciously changing direction. You cannot change direction. I don't believe you can change direction just 180 degrees, but even a 10 degrees change in direction, if you project it in the years, makes a huge difference in where you're going to arrive, or to be in 10 years.
Do you think this is just something we think of, that people will take this and companies will take this as an opportunity and think of it strategically and shift their focus or shift the way they do things? Are they really doing it, or is it more talk rather than action? What I'm saying is that I see, for example, remote work, right? It's everyone is talking about it. Some are building tools which are really helpful for remote work, and some are really passionate and driven, and they're really asking customers and questions, but it's a very limited number.
It's
the
true.
others just they go with the flow. They still implement best practices. They still think of, okay, what am I implementing, Zoom or Slack? Am I changing here or there? They're not thinking to change something to the core of what they are doing. Like, how do they share, if people are remote, how do they share tacit knowledge? How do they build trust? How do they build emotional intelligence? I see some discussions, but not really solid discussion. Maybe you where you stand from, you see something differently.
So I have two sides to this answer that comes to me. The first one is that a lot of the world, I think, is still in emergency mode. And when you are in emergency mode, you just want to get out of the emergency. Your neurological ability of looking ahead is diminished. It's amygdala thinking. And I think in some respect, many organizations are still in these months in amygdala thinking. And they're like, oh, what the hell is happening? How do I get out of here? And so they really do not care. They cannot care about the farther future in this moment, a lot of them. So this is part of it. And I think that is also normal, and it's normal in the sense that it is natural. So it is a strong situation. So the first reaction is to really try to get back to safety. So, and that makes me say that it is soon to observe the reactions, the actions. The most superficial level is really looking what changed in terms of tools and processes, and that is soon. It's still soon. I think it's going to take another 6 to 12 months to see if and how companies are really taking the opportunity or not. Which leads me to the second part of my answer. A couple of years ago, I wrote an article for the Huffington Post that was named "The Future of Work, People." In that article, I argued that if you really want to know how the future of work is going to be, you need to look at people today. And let me explain that. I work with a mental model of a human system, which applies to a family, an organization, even society itself, which is based on many things, namely on most importantly, on socio-technical thinking, which you can imagine a human system, like the whole world, if you want, or your family, is a river. So the moment you think of it as a river, first you understand that it's always changing. It doesn't wait for the consultancy to go and make a change project. It is always changing, but you can influence that change. You are also always influencing that change. So either you know about it or not. In this river, there is a surface, the free surface, and then there is the bottom. And we recognize at least 4 layers, 2 more technical on the surface and 2 more social on the bottom. So first layer is tools and processes. This is the layer that you see. This is actually the only thing that you can see, really see directly of a human system. What they do and how they do it. Again, it's a family. I don't know. What do you do when a child cries? Are you able to change the diaper? Whatever. You see the tools and processes of that system. Below that, enabling it, there is competencies. So even the capabilities, it's the ability to use and even choose and even devise your tools and processes. But below that, there is culture. Culture, among all the many definitions, I love the definition of beliefs in action. So culture is the linkage between the inner world of the people and how it's expressed then in the technical layers. And below the culture, there is people, which is the inner world. It is the origin. It's passions, beliefs, biases, personalities, all this word that is really part. When you map a system, normally people map tangible things. I always say in my courses and to my customers, you always have to think, if you really want to map a system, which I don't like in general, map also the intangibles, because maybe a project, an elephant in the room, a belief, these elements are as important as tangible assets, as people, as teams, as other things. And so all of that is at the people level. Actually, what happens is the reverse. People get together to achieve something in the world they couldn't achieve alone. They generate a culture. Culture is an emergent property of a complex adaptive human system. They have and develop competencies to use or to devise tools and processes to do what they want to do in the world. Now that leaves us looking at the surface of the river and thinking that is the river. But actually the origin of everything is at the bottom, and the speed of change decreases as you approach the bottom. So it's a matter of days or weeks if you want to change tools and processes, but competencies, slower. Culture, much slower. People with the beliefs, the passions, wow, much slower. So this is why I say that what we will have in 3 years in the visible, in the tools and processes level, is now being generated at the people level. So there were tendencies that I was observing in 2013 or 14 that now are generating different systems of work and other things. And those tendencies, you listen to them talking to people, being with people, they were not still in the organization's actions. And I think this is what is happening now. I see, to your question about what I see from my position, I see a lot more of serious and careful conversations about how our lives can be better. And I think that really a lot, and I mean millions of people in these months have reflected seriously on that. And that is going to have some fruit. I really don't know technically what is going to happen. There are a lot of constraints. There are strong powers. There are interests. So it's not easy. But it is already, I think it started. It is underway.
Do you think there's a way in which we can build more resilience into the future? Is it making organizations more agile? Is it going without hierarchy or reducing hierarchy? Any thoughts so we can be a bit more resilient and not be hit like a wave? Because other pandemics will come, other crises will come. This is not the last one.
Yes, it is nurturing people. It is nurturing ourselves. So the way I see organizations, also in my org design courses, is again socio-technical systems in which actually the power to dance with complexity, the power to actually to even thrive on complexity, digest it to generate your new cells, is in the people. We have millions of years of that. Whoever has children knows that. So we don't have to learn that. We need to practice that, to master that, and that's an endless journey. But it is in our bones. What happened is that in the Taylor and Gantt, which were working together, I discovered two bastards. Okay, you can cut that if you want. No, but still, there were two mechanical engineers in an age in which mankind thought that they could control the world as a machine. And so what they wanted is to design out the human factor of the organization. And so they did that, and it worked. Actually, in that historical moment, it led to a lot of improvements, even in the condition of workers. So it was nice. It was the beginning of the last century. And what they did was to constrain in many different ways, not to go too long now, but it was to constrain the freedom of the human system and to say, so this is how you have to work. The way you collaborate, the way you converse, the way you co-create are not free. You can do this and you cannot do all these other things. And they created something that is repeatable, suitable for mass production, optimizable, based on efficiency, and they destroyed the world. Actually, we destroyed the world using that. Because we started thinking that the world is linear, is mechanical, and that's not true, simply. And so the world is reacting to that attitude of commanding and controlling reality, which usually turns bad. So the point is that still, when you want to really have the adaptability, to have the creativity, to have the depth in an organization, you simply unleash the human system to the maximum extent to which that human system is ready to be unleashed, wants to be unleashed, and participates, which is normally a lot. And so by doing that, you start seeing how that becomes again a living being, so to say. And this is, I think, behind all the schools, groups, and tendencies that we see. And again, we try to read them at the tools and processes level. So it is the agile, no, it is more holacracy, sociocracy, LiquidO, whatever. But that's not the point. All of these things, what they are doing is to release the freedom of the human system, still giving them ways to coordinate, because you need to play the same game if you want to obtain something, but in a ways that actually allow the human system to define the rules as they go, to make the formal system of rules, of processes, flexible in order to adapt to what the human system is making sense of as the best thing to do, as the best way to work. Now, in order for that to happen, a lot of what is not seen by organizations is that it's not enough to release the constraints, because we've been raised in a world that was based on that thinking. In our schools, they taught us that there are right or wrong answers in life.
And that you need to sit on a chair, in a bench. And
there you go. And that yes, you need to speak only when allowed. And that stays with us. Our university are mostly like that still, unfortunately. Not all of them. That's changing, even though I think too slow. And so you need not just to tell people, now you're free, do whatever, because people will be just frightened. You need to nurture that. You need to take care of these people that need to start. It's like you had people sitting on a chair for 10 years and now you say, go and run. And so are you stupid? I don't know what you're talking about. And the moment I try to lift my butt from the chair, it hurts. What do I do? So we need to nurture our human side as individuals and as groups, being together. Teams, families, organizations. I think this is key. Then, which model of organization you want to design or adopt, that's another topic. We can talk about that. There are so many ways to get there, so many solutions. But what is lacking now is really people, is really nurturing people and showing them that they are human beings. They are the most precious thing that there is in our society. That's for sure. There is no society without all our inner world, including our biases, our fears, and all of that. It's never the fear. It's the relationship between the fear, the person, the other person around, the passions, and the strengths, and all of that. That needs to be nurtured. This is why I love the work that Nora Bateson is doing as well, and I'm trying to work with her as much as I can. because she's really focusing on this in this moment, and I think this is really what is needed.
For sure, and there was a study I just read about people if they know what to do with their freedom, and about 78%, exactly what you said, are actually afraid of freedom in the end, and they have no idea what to do with it. And that's where the world of work seems to be going, right? You'll be free to choose what you're doing, whether that's creative or not, but you'll be more free to add value any way you want. But that's the toughest question that you get in school, right? You can pick any subject and discuss it. That's I think the toughest exam that we ever had in school, right? Speak anything and then do your best. And it's in the same, we're in the same place right now. Pick anything that you want. What's your hobby? How you can make a profit from it? How you can keep your family alive but still enjoy it? And yeah, just do it. It's not an easy question. Not an easy answer.
It's not always the best for all the people. Also, a lot of people really prefer to be told what to do and do it with love. Then it's not. Now we have this moment of reaction, hierarchy, and command and control is the devil. It's one solution. It's one solution that was focused on stability, and stability is not bad on itself. It is bad when the context needs adaptability and you keep doing stability, and that doesn't work. But it's a little of Taoism there. It's a little of yin yang. You always have and you always need both. The point is, how do you dance in this polarity between being more stable and giving people stability, which is a value, and also being more adaptive, more adaptable, and giving people that freedom, which is also a value. We need to understand the relationship between these two things and work on that relationship. It's not just drop the hierarchy, give all the freedom, this thing, people will figure it out. That's really, I think it's immature way of seeing where the world of work is going. And now that it's mainstream, you hear a lot of that. But in Italy we say that where there is the World Soccer Championship, we are all trainers. We all know, and you hear everything and the contrary of everything.
Yeah, for definitely, for sure. By the way, Stelio, what do you think about people right now really wanting to start their own companies, be freelancers, working in the gig economy? Do you think this will contribute in any way in making them understand business better, be better leaders, maybe knowing when to shift from command and control to being supportive, to being whatever sort of leadership? I think there are hundreds of models right now. Do you think this will help? This will bring any positives?
I definitely do, and this is just one way of doing that. I know a lot of people that is doing this without leaving the organization, organizing this kind of attitude within the place of work. Others have left and are leaving. Others have been fired or laid out in this moment and will have to do that. But one thing that I really repeat a lot to our customers is that you cannot learn surfing reading a book, and you cannot learn martial arts reading a book. You need to be in the waves. And these people will be in the waves. Some have chosen so, some have been forced to that, but being in the waves is very positive at the end. You need to take care of your fatigue, you need to take care of your fear, but also you are in touch with life, you are in touch with the movement of things. And I think that will definitely help them develop and also help them to develop the world of work as they go.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think this is the best school actually for leaders. Because first you have to deal with different things, but then you have to deal with different people. Maybe something you've never had to do in a job where you were given a predefined box that you had to take care of.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then, also, I believe the leadership has a long history. It's been developing as our understanding of what an organization was developing. So the first leadership was based on the traits of the leader, and then the leaders, followers, and all the models. But I definitely think that leadership is something, again, in the relationship. It is an emergent property of relationships. It's not in a person. It's not that you are a leader. It's that in that moment you are generating leadership. And if you think about it, there is even the concept of leadership doesn't make sense if you are alone in a room. So it is in that relationship with the context, with the other people, and that's a continuous dance. And so the more you have these movements around and change, the more you have occasion to master that sensitivity to have leadership arise.
Yeah, I think you only need one extra component, the capacity to reflect and understand you are in a leadership mode at that point. And to reflect back and understand,
Yes.
okay, did I do it good or bad? What do I have to change to do it better?
Yes. Yeah, you learn. There's definitely a big set of competencies around that.
True. Stelio, you mentioned Cocoon several times and LiquidO. Tell me about how you set it all up and how it's running, because it's very interesting. And I will share the article that you posted. I think it's Medium.
Yeah, it's on Medium. I think it's called, the article title is A Story You Need to Know about Cocoon. Yeah, I waited 7 years to write about Cocoon, and I don't speak about it so much. I don't know why, actually. Probably because on one hand, I didn't want to sell how we are organized, because I think that, again, there is no model. You shouldn't be copying, but you have to find your own way. On the other hand, I wanted to wait and see if it worked, and now it's been 10 years, so it does. And but I think also now I wrote the article because really, as I said, now is a moment in which things are really moving, and people needed to have I don't want to say an example, but it's more a signal that it is possible. So this is why there's a story you need to know, because it is possible. You can do things that some years before you thought were completely impossible. So what happened? It's a long story, but I will try to make it short and focus on a few things, and then tell me if you want me to expand something. So two streams of understanding, of knowledge, of even of practice that we had in the previous company already were one on lean thinking and lean management, and the other one of openness, open collaboration. So one is really streamlining the flow of value and taking out everything that is muda, is called muda in lean terms, which means a waste. So whatever is not contributing to the stream of value that you want to generate, that's something that should be removed. Some muda you can't remove, they're necessary muda, but still you recognize that they are not contributing to the generation of value. The other one, the openness, is really putting more value streams together, generating something that is much more than the sum of each of them. It's opening up in terms of conversation, of even co-creation. So it's really allowing yourself to be an ecosystem of value streams. These were things we were working on already, and we embraced that completely when we started Cocoon. So given what we had observed in the rigidity crisis that I described before, we embraced the what if thinking, and we said, okay, so what if we try to eliminate everything that we have perceived as muda, and at the same time, what if we push the openness, the co-streaming concept to the maximum extent, to make it really powerful. And so what we did is, in short, we decided not to have job interviews in our company, because we found with the previous one that that's basically, it's not a complete waste of time, but there is a huge waste of energy in terms then on the results of whatever is the selection process. Google published stuff on that. It's a mess. So we didn't want that. We didn't want budgeting. So we went with dynamic budgeting. We didn't want, as much as possible, any predefined title and position. So we worked with roles, and different people could cover different roles in different moments, which now is part of the adaptive or design discipline. So it's much more roles than titles. And we made our governance, which I can describe if you want, which is the LiquidO Framework. We made it the heart of all of this. So basically, if somebody wants to start working in Cocoon, They just enter the governance, and doing governance, which so entering really the heart and brain of the organization, they will decide if to stay or not on their own. It's not easy because again, something you are not used to. There's no boss. We of course we help them in. There is peering, so you have some person that is there for you to help you. There are a lot of things that we have developed over the year to improve that, but still we don't want it to be easy because you don't. I mean, there are so many other companies in the world. It's not, the goal is not fitting you in. The goal is really seeing if you resonate with the system. If you on both sides, for you and for the system. So this is how we replace the job interviews. So just to start working, and the work you do is compensated with a dynamic system. The dynamic system is a system of feedback, first of all, which is what we call the contribution accounting. So other people give you a granular flow of feedback on how you are collaborating with them in the governance on each work item. So you get this feedback continuously, and you can use it to self-direct where and what you want to focus on in the governance. And that feedback also distributes the money on each work item to the different people according to the contribution that people decide among themselves that have been realized. At the same time, this is our dynamic budgeting because we use the resources, we allocate the resources by prioritizing, by co-creation, prioritizing the work items in the governance that then has a small process. So they need to be accepted, then they're ready to be taken in progress. We call them open. They can work on, then there is a final acceptance step, and then they're closed. All of this is free for everybody to join. So you can join the work items you want. And we see people, interesting enough, join work items for two reasons. One is they think they can contribute and they want that feedback, and they want to contribute because we all want to contribute. I mean, this is not wanting to contribute is an anti-pattern of rigid organization, but normally people want to do their best they can normally. I mean, even though there are some pathologies, but we have seen probably no one, maybe one or two, if you want to be strict, over 10 years. So they join because they think they can contribute, which will give them a good reputation in the company, which will give them a compensation and make them grow. So that's good. But the second reason is they want to learn. They join work guidance where they think they cannot contribute, but they want to learn about that scope of action, about those tools or whatever we're doing in that work item. And maybe they also say it. Sometimes they say, oh, I don't know what's happening here, but whatever I can do to help, even just setting up a doodle for our meetings, I will do that. And so that's beautiful because you see that people start to navigate their growth through the governance of the company. And then, of course, from there is all the rest of the organization. We have the projects, we have some products, and so on. People start to be known, they stay. The minimum to understand Cocoon is 6 months. I mean, it takes time. It is massive. We are not just a totally adaptive and emergent company, but we are also completely distributed since the beginning. So we have an headquarters, but it's for workshops. We meet there, all of us meet there once per year. It is in Rome at the moment, and we do a lot of workshop for customers there, but it's not the place of work. We get there to have meetings, some every once in a while, but the work is distributed. Most of our work is at our customer companies. So we meet together in groups, in teams on the customer, and then we have a heartbeat of moments in which we get together physically during the year. Before COVID, now it's getting more difficult, but still we do.
I'm a recruiter, so this thing about no interviewing, this is really fascinating. So whoever wants to join, they just how do they get in touch? How do they join?
They contact one of the governance members. They are published on the website. Well, actually, normally these are people that meet some of us somewhere, but sometimes they write. I mean, we have received a number of requests from the website. I want to know more. I want to enter. And they contact one of us. They have a chat in which this is what we call a reverse interview. So they interview us. What we want is that they understand the mess in which they are entering, not to understand them, because we will have time to understand them. So one of us talk with them to explain what we do, how we do it, how it works, and then they decide, I want in or not. If they want in, we activate all the digital accounts and stuff. What they send is just a short presentation that we share so that others know. It's like knocking on the door, like, this is me, and they enter, but there is no approval. It's just they enter anyway, even if the presentation will be, this is me, full stop, no judgment. Of course, some people write a very long one, some people write a short one. That's already interesting. And then they enter and they start doing or not doing, asking or not asking, and in the 1,000 ways in which you can ask or not ask, they start being with us.
Okay, so how do they get into projects, and do you just allow and are transparent with everyone that joins in? They can see your tools, they can use them.
Yeah, we have embraced radical transparency. What is not transparent at the moment is just for lack of time to make a platform to show all the stuff. We're working on it. We call it Astrolabe. But still, it is transparent in the sense that if you ask, you will have any information. A lot of the information, most of it is already there because it's Google Drive stuff and another set of tools that we have. Still, we are building something to give like an eagle view to everybody, and that's going to help a lot. It's overdue, actually. It's 2 years that we've been talking about it, but then you have priorities, then you have the COVID, and then
Yes.
But still, it's radical transparency, so you know everything that we're doing. We have a weekly meeting in which you can join, in which we simply enlist what we're doing in governance, what we're doing in our labs, which is where we develop the new value proposition, new tools, and so on, and what we are doing with customers. So you know all the customer project, who is taking care of that. You can just contact that person and ask and tell me what's going on, and so on. Or if you're interested, you can say, look, I have worked with a similar customer, may I be in the project? That's it. This is how it works in the governance, but then the customer projects have another organization, and there the creating, again, everything that is a muda in terms of creating value for the customer has been removed. And in this case, it's different. The value for the customer is bringing to the customer the best people for that iteration, for that project, for that moment. So it cannot be free. You just, I want to be there. So we have some project leaders
that's what I wanted to ask. Yeah,
knowing people propose and put the team together, and the team can change and normally change at every iteration of our projects. It's not the same team for the whole project, because one day you're working on more team related issues, one day is more strategy, one day is more organization design. So we put together always the best team, and in the team we include people that are not in Cocoon. They're not a part of the governance. Sometimes there are people that work with us in the customer projects, but they're not always in the organization as well. So the two different scopes linked by the fact that the project leader must always be a member of the governance. So this is the linkage. It's a human linkage. They bring all the knowledge, all the culture of the principles of the governance. They bring it into the project. But then all the rest is a microcosm that just focuses on giving customer value.
So I'll ask you something that I ask all distributed companies. How do you keep track of that knowledge that is in your head, another project's leader head? And how do you keep track of that, of the actual projects that are happening, so everyone is on the same page and everyone knows if there's a certain way to work on the project or a certain expectation from the customer that they should be aware of, and rather than chasing someone to ask, they can, I don't know, access a file or find it somewhere written. Is there any such thing? Or
yes, there is. It's not enough. So what we have done, we're small. We are less than 30 people, but probably 30 people at the moment. So it's easier. We are quite aware that this the way we do this now is not optimal, if there is an optimal, for us today, but covers 80%, maybe 90%. But if we keep growing as we hope, it's not going to be enough. We will need more tools. But still, at the moment, it is conversation that happen formally and informally. We have many rituals, like, again, the morning operational meeting that I told you. Then we have a monthly catch-up about the governance. We have our jams twice per year. We have people. We have some peer. How do you say in English? Peer
Bodies? No.
driven processes. So
Okay.
somebody stays with you to help you learn something, how we do something, like, for example, leading a project. So we have devised many things on the focus is most important. And then we have tools, of course, all the governance outcomes of the governance decision, they are available to everybody, organized in folders. We have our tools that we have developed for LiquidO for the governance. We call it Wello. It's a platform where you can see everything that happens or has happened in the governance. So there are different tools. Now, this is a battle that I would love to have more energy to fight, because I really think that the world needs tools for what I call emergent knowledge management. So this basically would be a tool that allow you as part of an organism to attract the information that you need in the moment in which you need. There is now, I think that artificial intelligence is mature enough. Some machine learning is enough. There are all the pieces. And I know about a couple of companies that were working on something like that. But as to my knowledge, to my current knowledge, there is nothing like that. Maybe something from IBM Watson could be applied in that direction, but it's not exactly what I think of. So this is, I think, a huge market opportunity for people that know both what an emergent organization is and the technicalities of this kind of knowledge management, intelligence-driven software. And I think we would be definitely one of the customers, but I also think that many of our customers would need it. So if somebody out there wants to develop, we are in for the organizational part.
I'll share some resources with you, because there are other distributed companies that reach 1,300 people, or around 1,000 that are looking into this, and some which are quite pioneering, and they're software development companies, most of them, and their product supports such knowledge building and sharing.
That's cool. I mean, I don't know if it is what I'm saying exactly.
Yeah.
But I would love to know more. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think of them. So you said that you're right now 30, but you've been more at some. I imagine that you're receiving people want to join maybe every single day. I mean, it's an organization where you can join for free. This seems like, hey, this is easy.
Yeah, well, first of all, we are not advertising this. So not all the people, it's not on the website. There is no join us, it's open. So we really want people to arrive because they have read, they have observed, and they want to try. So yeah, there is an interesting flow. I don't know how many, a few hundreds of people have passed by through Cocoon. Some stayed for 2 weeks, some stayed for 3 years, some of course are still there. I think the peak we've reached, because it changed, it's not controlled at the moment. We don't have a need to have a regulator for that. So it is free at the moment. I think we arrived to maybe 80 or 90 in the most chaotic moment. But then we also applied what we call the shift out. So there is a dynamic that if you're not active in the governance, if you're not doing anything, you're not contributing for a set amount of time, you just visibly get deactivated. So this now the 30 are 30 that actually are working. Otherwise, it's a mess, because you can enter, nobody checks, and then you pile up people that maybe enter a meeting once in a month, and that's not what we want.
For sure. Tell me a bit about LiquidO, because you keep mentioning governance, and I have the feeling that there's more to it than what you mentioned before.
Yeah, well, LiquidO, and at the moment we are preparing to write. We have started writing, preparing to publish a new white paper. You can find it on liquidorganization.info. There is a very old one, but still, again, we are working. Actually, we're going to send a message to all the subscribers to know what they want to know more of. But for sure, there will be an how-to guide that wasn't there in the first edition and not in the second, because we thought it was too soon to say how to do that. Now we have a lot of experience. So LiquidO is a framework that is thought for completely emergent organization, but can be adapted to departments, divisions, or even teams, or even projects. We've used also in a project. Of course, it has to be a long enough project, years, not months. So it is a framework. It's not a model. That's one of the things we want to change in the wording, because actually model is really something that you want to copy. But a framework is something that you need to adapt. It frames, but then it must be filled. It is based on 4 pillars. One pillar is a collaborative environment or collaborative working board that basically is a specific Scrumban process for the work items, which links in the process. There are some decisions that links to another part of LiquidO, which is the part of the decision-making toolbox. So there are decisions on the board, on the work items, but then some work items are decisions. And so you need a toolbox to take decisions in complexity. And it doesn't have to be always the same way. It can be positional decision making, can be consent decision making, can be completely collaborative, it depends. And so the team chooses the way they take the decision when it is a decision, a work item. The principle is to iterate as soon as possible, so to get feedback from reality as soon as possible. So the smallest, the leanest, the lightest way to take that decision in order to have feedback, but that depends on the decision, on the moment, and so on. So we have a toolbox for that. So that is a proper pillar, just very important. Then we have another part that, as I mentioned, what is called contribution accounting, which is the set of dynamics for which people assess the contribution of other people granularly in work items. So we exchange feedback, and we also make visible then numerically the difference in contribution percentage from what emerged from the team and what the individual thought of his or her contribution. And that's powerful.
It's very powerful.
Actually, we have seen that it is almost always contained in 5% difference, and almost never more than 10%. So it means that people know very well if they have contributed and not. And very often you see a plus or minus 1.5%. It's like, wow. So, and it's powerful because then actually this is one of the parts of LiquidO that aligns the individual interest when we do something with the group interest. And this is key as a design principle we have chosen with LiquidO. So LiquidO has a lot of dynamics that align the individual interest, that is interest in growth, in getting reputation, in getting money, and everything, with the group interest, so they don't clash. And that allows to embrace diversity, because you can contribute in your own way. There is no right or wrong answer. So it's like the team will tell you, thank you for whoever you are and whatever you have done. And then the last one is the reputation tracing. So there is a concept in nature which is stigmergy, which is well known in ants, in birds. Of course, we're humans, it's different. But still, the concept is that if you leave traces of your behavior in the environment, others can decide how to relate with that and coordinate the work according to that. So basically what we do is we make visible who is doing what, how much they're contributing, and how much they have contributed over time. You can see all the contribution, all the differences between the evaluation of the contribution from the team and from the individual, and everything in the governance. Start building what we call your operational reputation, which is not the political reputation, which you make your friends and you it doesn't work in LiquidO. Actually, LiquidO has proven disabling that a lot, because then you have the operational reputation. You have the outcomes of what you have done or you haven't, and that's there for everybody to see. So just to say it briefly, these are the 4 pillars that come together into a framework. Each of the pillars can be differently designed according to the organization that want to use this kind of governance and how strongly all in they want to be. I mean, LiquidO is perfect if you don't have, it's perfect for really emergent organizations. So dynamic budgeting, maybe if you still have to have job interviews, but then you can have this first period of when people enter, still you can put them in the governance through LiquidO and see what happens, and so on. So this
Do you
is
think
it.
bigger organizations can adopt it as well?
Yes. It's not a matter of number. Actually, what I used to say when I have this question is that LiquidO is thought as a way of liquefying your organization, so taking out rigidity. And in order to have water, you don't want a couple of drops. You want many molecules. So the more people you have, the more you will appreciate the fluidity. Of course, you don't have to expect that, since the participation in governance is not mandatory, and the coupling with the compensation in big organization is trickier. But still, you don't have to expect that everybody wants to participate in the governance, which is an error I've seen some organization doing. So we have adopted LiquidO, but there are people that do not take part into the governance. That's fine. This is why it is not mandatory. This is why it is voluntary. And that's an information, but doesn't say they're good or bad. They say that they want to participate in the governance. Maybe then you can have some conversations.
Yeah, for sure. But on the other hand, maybe at some point the way we incentivize people in big organizations would need to change as well, because that's definitely not perfect. And that's not, most of the time, it's not necessarily based on merit or contribution.
And actually, I think that's where LiquidO, on one hand, is very helpful, because its contribution is not performance. There is no performance measuring tool in LiquidO. Actually, contribution is very different. Performance is how you are, in theory, you are contributing to the value generated by the company in the best case, which is unknowable, because you need to be 5 years in the future to see the exponential outcomes of each small action in complexity. While contribution is how you allowed others to have the best outcome. It's very different. It's very different. It's shift from an egoistic perspective to an ecoistic perspective. So it's the ecosystem speaking to itself in a conversation with each individual, but speaking to itself. And on the other hand, it is tricky for the same reason. And as I mentioned before, when you have to attach the contribution to the compensation of people. So say, okay, how do we deal with people that are contributing more in the governance and people that are not? Do we pay for that or not? There is no right or wrong question or answer.
That's right.
In any answer you give has a but. So that's another very interesting thing when you want to implement LiquidO, to understand what is best for you in that moment of your evolution. But it is tricky.
Yeah, indeed. But it is very, very interesting. So I'm very curious how this will evolve. And maybe at some point we can talk about some of the mistakes you've made and how you've corrected them along the way and what you've learned from them. Because I'm sure in 10 years there have been some.
Oh, of course there have been some. Whenever you want. And then what I can anticipate is that our idea of mistakes has evolved itself through this kind of approach to work.
What I think, though, is that those that stayed with you and are still with you as a team will have a hard time leaving Cocoon and this type of work, because it's very hard to find it somewhere else.
Well, that's true.
I've heard of similar principles, but in extremely few places. I can count them on the fingers of one hand.
So it depends on what you want in your life. It is very adaptive. And so it gives you that freedom strongly, and that growth, and that's also quality of people. One of the comments that we hear all the time from the new contributors is that I've never grown up so quickly, professionally and humanly, as I have been growing since I entered here. This is very common comment. And I think that is true because of the complexity that you have to navigate, but also the care that you find from the system to help you do that. And this is something we had to learn about. So that's on one hand what you get, but you also lose something. You lose stability. You have to put yourself into the work, heart and brain all the time. So it depends on what you want. The compensation is very variable due to all these movements. So it's not for everybody, definitely. And I am glad that it's not for everybody, because I believe that the offering of work in the world should be as different as people are.
Yeah,
But it's true that we have people that really. Another thing that we are moving into at the moment is being an aimless organization. So there is a lot of talk about purpose, but I think that we are mature enough now as an organization to go beyond that and saying that our purpose is being our best in any given moment, and that's it. And we don't know if we will be making shoes in 5 years or selling sailboats or whatever. That's not important. And this is also it's radical. But if you
it
are
is.
that kind of person that wants that, you will have a very hard time finding that any place else. And so it's true. There are people. Well, I'm one of them that even in the hard times think that there is no better place to be than in Cocoon.
Yeah, I just had a conversation 2 or 3 weeks ago. The podcast is already out with Naomi Stanford and Matthew Skelton and Milan Gunther on exactly this. What's more important? Some companies are driven by values, right? And they keep the flag up that values is what should drive an organization. Some others say that it should be culture. They commonly came to the same conclusion that it should be purpose. Right. So I think this can be a very interesting discussion with you maybe at some point to to really
I
weigh those
would
ideas
love that.
and yes.
Our most advanced work that is unpublished is on that at the moment. And I can anticipate that it entails the relationship between the identity of the organization and the ecosystem, what we call eco loop on one hand, and the concept of dance, of being in the flow of the music, if you want, of your ecosystem, which is the same concept as before, without any predefined purpose, because that purpose is the same way that is the driver is a limit. It's a very strong limit. So happy to talk about it if you want.
Perfect. Then I'll make the connections for sure. Stelio, I don't want to leave this without talking about Care For. This is a new project. Is it part of? Did you start it as part of Cocoon or separate to?
No,
from
it started from as Cocoon. So what we're doing now, thank you for that. I love talking about C4. It needs people that care enough to. I laugh because it's care for. So care enough about care for to help us grow. So it was born. Care for of what it is. First of all, it is a platform where you will find live opportunities. This is why the domain is carefor.live. So it is care, letters, and for number, CARE 4.live. It is live. You will find live opportunities to interact with people caring about where the world is going today. Not just the word of work, because work is a very broad term. My child teachers work in a restaurant. They are working. Everybody is working. The society is work. So it's not work as we normally put it in the business books. It is where really we're going. You will find on Care For, you will find webinars, some courses as well. You will find events, and you will find workshops where you can work with people on topics. It is a platform that was born in the heart of this COVID crisis, when we really felt that there was a need for that, and that need couldn't go through organizations because that's too slow for what we were saying before. So we want to go directly to people. And so this is what we did. And everybody that is producing a content on C4, we do some curation, but we're open to proposals. We really, if you care and you have contents, please reach out. Everybody that produces contents there donates at least 50% of the effort, so that others, so the users, let's say, can receive that content at a price that is low. We use the cinema rule. We say that 2 hours webinar should cost more or less like 2 hours at the cinema. So you have the choice how you want to use those 2 hours. And what Care For does is actually merging the concept of personal and collective growth with that of entertainment. So we think that those things should be energizing, should be even fun, and should be a pleasure to be done. It's not, it's a course about, I don't know, management, decision making. That is interesting, but still it's work. No. It should be, wow, do I go to see the last Avengers movie or 2 hours with Paul Tolchinsky or Nora Bateson, or we have more and more beautiful people. And it's live, and we have to figure out how to help all the many people that are asking for recordings, because we don't want to record. It is live because these things live in the moment. These things have one shape because you are there interacting with the other people. If you know that there is a recording, you will not be there, and that will not be the same value again. So everything happens live. It works with the metaphor of Netflix and all these kind of entertaining things. So you have series, there are already some crossovers and spin-offs, and you have seasons. But the series that will have success will air more than once. So if it's live and you lost, you can ask for more, or you can wait for it to be published again. This is Care for in short, and we just launched it. It was mid-June. So we had one test of 6 to 8 weeks. It was beautiful, it worked, and now we will devote a lot of energies this autumn to try and see if it can blossom, really.
Perfect. I did speak with some people about Care for. I do need to get back in touch with them because I've been out as well, and I'll come back to you. Because it is very nice what you're doing, truly.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Stelio, thank you so much for your insights today. Very revolutionary.
Wow, thank you. That's really a pleasure being with you. And thank you for your interest and helping us telling stories.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll make sure I post the links as well so people can get in touch either with Cocoon or with Care for easily.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Stelio.
Bye, everybody.